Om Sri Sai Ram. I offer my loving salutations at Swami's lotus feet. Respected elders and my dear devotees, today is the 179th edition of Samarpan, a very, very auspicious day, and I am very delighted that Swami has given us a chance to be in Brindavan with him on this auspicious day. I think today is Lord Parashurama Jayanti, the 6th avatar. The Ganges descended on earth. Lord Sudama went back to Krishna on this day and he just offered poha and Lord Krishna gave him everything as a sakha. Also, the great Rishi Vedavyasa chanted or started the Mahabharata on this day. So this Akshaya Tritiya or the 179th edition of Samarpan is a very historic day. Equally, we have a very distinguished speaker today, Brother T. Rama Balachandran. He was an alumni who studied both in Puttaparthi and Brindavan. He did his BSc Commerce Honours and a Masterate in Financial Management. He got a gold medal from Bhagawan. He is an excellent singer, well known for Vedas. He has a corporate career with HDFC Bank in Chennai. He is also a trustee of Swami's Central Trust in Chennai. Like we have the Samarpan here, brother undertakes Samarpan in Chennai. So I would, without wasting much time, would request Brother Rama Balachandran to share his wonderful experiences and make this Akshaya Tritiya day a memorable Samarpan for all of us. Jai Sai Ram.
त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव त्वमेव सर्वं Sri Sai Deva. Dear Swami, loving pranams at your lotus feet. Respected elders, dear brothers and sisters, Sai Ram. I don't know how many of you have heard of a devotee named Pandurang Dikshit. And I see a lot of bhajan boys here. Thus, there's all the more probability that you've probably heard of him. If you haven't, this is one name you must definitely hear of. Because this wonderful person was not just a devotee of Bhagawan, but also a wonderful composer, of music. In fact, those of you who have heard about the movie Shirdi Ke Sai Baba in the year 1977, which came, of course, about 20 years after Shirdi Ke Sai Baba, which is the Marathi movie on Bhagawan's previous avatar. So he was the composer of all the songs that you hear in that particular movie. In fact, this is one song you'll possibly remember. Sainath tere hazaron haat, Sainath tere hazaron haat, jis jisne tera naam liya, jis jisne tera naam liya, तू हो लिया उसके साथ, साईनाथ, साईनाथ. Now this is one of the many gems that Sri Pandurang Dikshit has composed. What I'm actually here to talk about to begin the Samarpan session is possibly a lesser known experience of hers. Sri Pandurang Dikshit, being a musician, whenever he would come to Bhagawan's presence, I understand would always carry his harmonium. And, the harmonium would normally have on it engraved the name of the manufacturer. So you've got Pollen Company, you've got Pakrash, you've got many other companies. Even this harmonium, I'm sure this is again a Pollen Company, I can see. Now, his harmonium had the brand name abbreviated as DSR. Now that was the abbreviation of the company which had manufactured this harmonium. Now, however, Sri Pandurang Dikshit had a very interesting expansion to DSR. When somebody were to ask him what DSR is, he would say that DSR is Dikshit Sai Rakshit. D for Dikshit and Sai Rakshit. Dikshit, who is protected by Sai, and this harmonium belongs to Dikshit, who is protected, who is under the protective cover of Sai, Dikshit Sai Rakshit. Now, many years later, what happened is that by Bhagwan's divine will, the daughter of Sri Panduranga Dikshit, Jyotsna Garu, Jyotsna Dikshit, who later became Jyotsna Reddy Garu, by Bhagwan's Sankalpa, was married to Sri Raja Reddy Garu, who all of you have definitely heard of. One of the most prolific bhajan singers who also got the opportunity to serve Bhagwan in his residence for many, many years. So this wedding happened. And once after the wedding happened, Bhagwan walks into Sri Panduranga Dikshit's room and looks at the harmonium, and he points out towards the harmonium and said, Dikshit, there's DSR written on your harmonium. What is that? And in his usual style, Sri Panduranga Dikshit tells Swami, saying, Swami, DSR is Dikshit Sai Rakshit. Swami says, nay, that's not what it is. Swami said, Dekho, DSR. Is taraf D Dikshit or us taraf R Reddy. So on one side you have the D Dikshit family and R the Reddy family, or beech mein kaun hai? S for Sai. So it is Sai who brings the Dikshit and the Reddy together. Dear brothers and sisters, I thought I should start with this because honestly, what is Samarpan? Sometimes the prospect of speaking in a Samarpan session is worrying because by design, a Samarpan session has the risk of being very autobiographical. Sometimes it ends up becoming about the speaker. But as we begin the Samarpan session today, my prayer to you, Bhagawan, is that by the end of this Samarpan session, the speaker should be forgotten. All the stories also can be forgotten. It doesn't matter. In fact, often I wondered what Samarpan stands for. Now, I believe or I feel that Samarpan is an offering. What are you really offering? I think what we are really offering is 1 hour, 10 minutes we spend in Bhagwan's presence here. We are offering our chitta, our mind to him. I think that is the Samarpan that we are doing. This 1 hour, 10 minutes, we think of nothing but Swami and Swami and Swami alone. And like Bhagawan says, the only purpose of all sadhana is chitta shuddhi. And I think we are here to purify our minds. So my earnest request to all of you, my prayer to Swami is, Swami, you are the link which connects all of us. What binds us together is that Paraspara Prema of that Sai who connects everything. None of us are connected to each other directly, dear brothers and sisters. All of us are connected to Swami, and it is through him that we are connected. And it's my earnest prayer to Bhagawan that this Samarpan session turns out to be an opportunity for us to connect with him and him alone. And thus, after the Samarpan session, may the speaker be forgotten, may the credentials of the speaker be forgotten, may even the experiences be forgotten, but may we only remember those wonderful moments that we now spend in Bhagawan's presence. Speaking about the wonderful moments, one of my favorite lines from the loving God, Professor Kasturi, talks about, in fact, he's quoting, I recently learnt that this quote is actually an extract from Rabindranath Tagore's Gitanjali. Interestingly, the line he's picked up is from song or verse number 63, 6 plus 3, 9. That can't be a coincidence. So verse number 63 of the Gitanjali, he picks a portion of that, in fact, talking about the many experiences which he narrates in The Loving God, which is, by the way, an autobiography, very similar to a Samarpan. He says that whatever is presented in The Loving God is nothing but the touch of the one in the play of the many. What a beautiful way to talk about it. The touch of the one in the play of the many. So every Samarpan session that we listen to, not just this, but the ones to come, the ones which have passed by, every satsang we are a part of, may that turn out to be the touch of that one in the play of the many. Everybody else are just actors in this play. At the end of the day, may our mind stay only and only on him. This may have happened in Brindavan, I'm not very sure, but at least I heard this in Brindavan for the first time. In fact, when I heard this particular experience which I'm going to narrate, I was on the other side, sitting where all of you are sitting, and there was a brother who was standing here and narrating this experience. So let me share this with you as one of the first experiences I narrate as part of the Samarpan session. There was this brother who was part of the bhajan group, wonderful singer, and as always, he sang beautifully during a particular bhajan session. He sang so beautifully that one of the professionals, a Hindustani classical music professional, was so impressed with his singing that he sent word through somebody for this boy. So he called this boy and said, Beta, you sing so beautifully. And he said, if you're willing to come to Pune, I will accept you as my disciples under my tutelage. You can stay in my place and you can learn. Now this is not something, if you really know the Hindustani masters, this is not something they give away easily. Often you'll have to stay there, request, pray, and finally they'll relent and give you an opportunity. But here is a maestro who's calling this man, and is a maestro whom he also as a musician looks up to, this boy looks up to as a wonderful musician. This man calls him and says that I will teach you personally. But there's a problem. This brother is still studying in Swami's college. Now you can't just walk away. So you need to seek Bhagawan's permission. So I'm given to understand that there was a conversation between Bhagawan and this student, this brother, and this brother is reasoning with Bhagawan saying, Swami, I need to go away from here. I need to go and learn Hindustani music. And he says, Swami, I want to go. This person has said he'll teach me music. And then Swami asks, why do you want to learn music? Swami, so that I can sing bhajans better. And immediately Swami says, why do you want to sing bhajans better? Swami, so that I can please you. And immediately at that moment, like a mother who does not want to lose his child, her child, Swami immediately says, no, I'm already very pleased with you. Okay, so don't go. I'm already very pleased with you. If that's the reason you're going, I'm already pleased. And so the conversation goes on. Finally, this student uses a line of argument which he thinks is the Brahmastra. He tells Swami, in fact, he quotes Swami to Swami. Many times, standing on this very dais, we've heard Swami say, Sarvatat panipadam tat sarvatokshi shiromukam sarvatashruti loke sarvam avritya tishtati. Sarvatat panipadam. His hands and feet are everywhere. Sarvatokshi shiromukam. His eyes, his face, his mouth are everywhere. Sarvata Shrutiman loke. His ears are everywhere. Sarvam avritya tishtati. In fact, everything stands encompassed by him. And he uses that particular words of Swami with Swami and says, Swami, it is you who said that you are sarvatatmani padam, sarvatokshi shiromukam, sarvatashruti loke, sarvavavatya tishtati. So Swami, how does it seriously matter whether I'm in Brindavan, whether I'm in Prashantalayam or I'm in Pune? Irrefutable argument, or so he thought. But then Bhagawan looks at him and says, Bangaru, and listen to this, brothers, very carefully. Brothers and sisters, don't lose me now. This is the most important part of this experience. Swami looks at this brother and says, Bangaru, it is true that I am there everywhere. It is true that I am there everywhere, but do you feel me everywhere? Do you experience me everywhere? What a profound message. So that's the key question, dear brothers and sisters. He is everywhere. Who said Swami is not there everywhere? Of course he is there everywhere. In fact, this question which is asked by Swami Vivekananda to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa when he says, have you seen God? And what did Sri Ramakrishna say? He said, of course I've seen God. And you know how the conversation went. But the same question was asked to one great master who used to live in Tiruvannamalai, a very realized soul who used to live in Tiruvannamalai, in Tamilnadu, where the Arunachala temple exists, and the Arunachala name figures in Swami's own Manasa Bhajare, as you all know. So when this holy man was asked by a person who wanted to do a Vivekananda with him, went up to him and said, Sir, have you seen God? And immediately that man said, what else is there to see? What else is there to see? So, yes, Swami is there everywhere, but the key question is, do we feel him everywhere? So that is the key question. How do we make the Sarvatatpani Padam, Sarvatokshi Shiromukam, Sarvatashruti loke, Sarvamavritya Trishtati? How do we make that a real experience? Many ways to do it, not just one. But my prayers to Swami, Swami, may today's Samarpan session may become the beginning of a Shravana, which will later become Manana, which will later translate into Nididhyasana and result in a real experience of we experiencing him everywhere. Sarvatatpani Padam, Sarvatokshi Shiromukam, Sarvatashruti loke, Tat Sarvam Avritya Tishtati. And thus when I was thinking about how I could possibly talk about experiences which Bhagawan has given, I thought maybe a framework into which all these experiences would fit in is Sarvatat Panipadam, Sarvatokshi Shiromukam, Sarvatashruti loke, Sarvamavritya Tishtati. By the way, do you know the source of Sarvatat Panipadam, Sarvatokshi Shiromukam? The source, of course, is Bhagawan, but Bhagawan gave it to us through, of course, the mantra drishtas, through the rishis. In fact, this is chapter 3 and verse 16 of Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Interestingly, it also figures verbatim in the Bhagavad Gita, where Swami himself talks about it. When he came as Krishna, he speaks about it in the Bhagavad Gita. Let's pick up each part of it. Sarvatat Pani Padam. His hands and feet are everywhere. Maybe this is the opportunity to get into the autobiographical mode and talk about how Bhagawan made his presence felt in the lives of my family. In fact, I must say that he made his entry. In fact, the word made his entry is inappropriate because he was always there. But for want of a better word, in a very human sense, he made his presence felt, I would say, very systematically. And I mean the word systematically, literally and figuratively. Why? Because it all started with a cyst. A cyst which my mother developed in her ovary. At a very young age, she had a surgery in the Apollo hospital in Chennai. Her uterus was removed, one ovary was removed, a part of the other ovary was removed, and in whatever little part of the ovary was there, one day there was a stomach ache, she was rushed to the hospital, and they figured out through a scan in my hometown, Thrissur in Kerala, that there was a cyst which needed medical attention. So we went to the hospital there. Most of our family doctors are in a hospital called the Jubilee Mission Hospital in Thrissur in Kerala. So most of those doctors are people whom we know for a long time. In fact, many babies in our family have been delivered by doctors there. So one of those doctors, of course, she saw the scan report and said that you need medication. First, let's try medication to see, because the cyst can't remain. We'll have to do something about it. Let's try medical management first. So they tried medicines. Nothing worked. In fact, the pain was still there. she was taken for a second scan, and they found that the cyst had actually become bigger. And if the cyst, there was a chance of the cyst bursting, and if that were to burst, it was fatal and not advisable, which means you'll have to remove it surgically. And then what happens is they said, let's try injections. Now, all this happens at a time when we have not even, at least me, we have not even physically seen Bhagawan. All of us were supposed, this was the early 1990s, 1992, when we were supposed to go to Prashantilaniyam for the first time for the Onam celebrations to see Bhagawan for the first ever time. At least my mother was going to see Swami for the first time. I was supposed to see Swami for the first time, Onam, just before Onam, and a few days before that. All the travel tickets are booked. We're all ready to go, and this is when the cyst happens. Now the doctor is worried, and doctor said, see, we can't let this to persist. We must do something about this. And finally, when this happened, the doctor said, no, we must do something about this. If need be, we'll have to do a surgery. Now, surgery is a worrisome term, and my grandfather decides to, because we've just come to, or we have, long time before he had been to Swami, he had darshan of Swami, but after many years, the connection had got rejuvenated. We had detected his presence again, I would say, in our life. And in the new enthusiasm of this rejuvenated devotion, he picked up 3 or 4 packets of vibhuti and told my mother, saying, have this. In fact, my mother now tells me, even I was checking with her even later this afternoon, she was telling me, quote unquote, she was saying, what will this vibhuti do? In fact, in her mind, what will the vibhuti coming from a quote unquote fake Swamiji ever do to cure me is exactly what she thought, irreverently, is what she was saying. Because when she was a child, living in Bombay, she grew up in Bombay, there was a Sai devotee who was in the ground floor of the apartment they lived in. He had gone to Puttaparthi and he had passed away in Puttaparthi, something which he would have considered a blessing, but all his relatives thought that that was a curse. Because this person had passed away in Puttaparthi, had started blaming Swami, and that was the first thing she had heard about Swami. And in her child's mind, in her little mind, she had this very, very, very negative vibe about Swami and the name itself. And with all this feeling, and suddenly you're in a family of Sai devotees, all this she's talking about now. But at that point of time, in a conservative joint family, she did not have the guts to say that she did not believe in Swami. So reluctantly, she takes the vibhuti, has the vibhuti. My father forces her to come for bhajans in the Trishur Samiti. I still remember that day, she put up a major fight. And to put up the major fight, as part of her reasoning on why she would not come for bhajans, she quotes Swami's teachings to say, Swami has said, hands that help are holy than lips that pray. Thus, I will not come for bhajans, I will only serve your parents. Very powerful argument again. But she later on told me the real reason is she wanted to avoid Swami and the bhajans. But she was bulldozed into coming for the bhajans. She sits in the bhajan, Trishur Samiti, in behind. She picked up the farthest spot she could pick so that she can be as away from Swami as possible. And the bhajan, Dasharatha Nandana Rama, Daya Sagara Rama, was going on in the Samiti. And my mother has a terrible stomachache and she's just not able to sit and just walks out of the Samiti. My father is very upset because she's broken discipline. They come out, they have an altercation again. I still remember all that happened in my presence, and all this happens. The next day she goes for a scan and they are not able to find the cyst, but they believe that this is because of a gastric block and you're not able to find the cyst. And the doctor says, no, we must do a laparoscopy, which is an invasive, not a procedure, not a surgery, but then it is invasive. You actually go inside and see. You want to see what has happened to the cyst. And they do invasive procedure. My mother's gone inside. I've gone to school. My father is waiting outside. She's about to be administered general anesthesia. What my father sees is doctors running in, running out. First a junior doctor, then a slightly more senior doctor, then an even more senior doctor. That is a very worrying sight if you're the bystander of a patient, because it basically tells you this is not good news. But what happens is finally the doctor in Jubilee Mission Hospital, in fact, that was the doctor who even delivered my daughter. Okay. She actually comes outside and says, I just can't believe what I'm saying. The cyst is missing and there is a scar, in fact, a neat surgical scar. The cyst which was there in the scan just disappeared after the bhajana. That's why I said Bhagawan came into the life very systematically. This was even before we went to Bhagawan for the first time. But the real story was, in fact, I remember when I got the opportunity to speak in front of Bhagawan in Brindavan, when I had the opportunity to go for darshan, I was remembering that blessed moment. Swami said, will any of you want to speak Some 20, 35 boys put up their hand. I was in the middle of the hall. I had absolutely no hope I'll be picked up. In the hope that I will not be picked up, I put up my hand. The only benefit of getting picked up for a speech is you get a Pada Namaskar before and after. Ravi Kumar sir was there in the audience, I remember at that point of time. He may not remember the speech, but I remember he being there. Swami picked me up from the middle of the hall. And I went up to, and now I'm caught. I don't know what to speak. I'd never spoken, in front of Swami. I was known for singing, never for speaking. And I walk up there and I ask Swami, can I talk about my mother's experience? And Swami says, whatever you want, sir. Whatever you want, sir. And I speak about it. And Swami had a very interesting smile when I spoke about his experience. And I couldn't fathom that smile. When I went back and told my mother, saying, Amma, Swami had a very unfathomable smile when he spoke about it. Why did he smile the way he smiled when I spoke about experience? She said, actually, I didn't believe in Swami. This is my transformation point. All this she told us later. So she was telling us that what happened is when she was in the hospital, when she was being administered the general anesthesia for the laparoscopy, there was a doctor. In fact, the doctor possibly still working in that hospital there, and I have met him subsequently many times after that. When I joined the bank, I had the opportunity to open his bank account without realizing that he had a part to play in our experience. In fact, that gentleman, he came near and he was about to administer the anesthesia. He felt my mother was nervous and he asked my mother, Amma, are you worried? She said, no, I've had surgeries a long time, many times, so this is nothing. Baaye haath ki kel, very easy for me. I mean, the surgery is nothing for me. But the moment she was being admitted, the first prick of the injection, unknowingly, unwittingly, the first name which comes out of her mouth is Sai Ram. A person who dislikes Swami's name says Sai Ram, and in place of that doctor, the anesthetist, she sees Swami. Swami is holding her hand and says, why fear when I'm here? Remember, she's not read Sai literature. She does not know that Swami says, why fear when I'm here? Swami holds her hand and said, why fear when I'm here? Then, of course, she comes, she opens her eyes and she realizes that the cyst has disappeared. Sarvatat Pani Padam. He literally held my mother's hand and said, dear brothers and sisters, remember, this is even before we had Swami's darshan for the first time. Even before we had darshan for the first time, he held the hand and said, why fear when I am here? Sarvatat Pani Padam. Dear brothers, many of the experiences I narrate, when I emptied whatever came into my head into paper, I realized there was a pattern. The pattern is, in most of these experiences, Swami is not even physically involved. And then I thought that's part of Swami's plan, because maybe I thought there would be brothers and sisters who would sit here and say, oh, you talk about all this, but now Swami is not there, we've not seen Swami, we've not had darshan. But maybe the reason why the experiences, if Swami's will is and the script plays out the way I think it would, most of the experiences we would talk about are where Swami is not even physically involved, which means not for a moment should this doubt cross your mind that, oh, all that happened when Swami was physically there, he saw Swami, I didn't see Swami. Seriously, doesn't matter. In fact, I'll tell you, when brothers were asking me for photographs, there are very few photographs I have with Swami. One of the few photographs I have is when I got a gold medal. One more is, in fact, I was taken for darshan inside the interview room. Inside the interview room, Swami gave us one photo, two people. Few photos I have. Swami has spoken to me physically very few times. That way, maybe I'm closer to a lot of you who are actually sitting there. You possibly will be able to relate to me. And thus, I would request you to be alert to the many things already happening in your life where Swami's hand is there. The touch of the one in the play of the many. Sarvatat Pani Pada. Talking about Pani, his hand, I can't but resist, remembering a beautiful experience. When I joined the institute in Brindavan, 1994, looking at all the videos and the wonderful visuals I saw, Bhagawan and students, I, poor me, had this impression that Bhagawan speaks to every student, physically. And I came here, a spoilt brat, brought up in a joint family, the apple of everybody's eye, always used to receiving love and attention, and I come here thinking, Swami, my father is not there, my mother is not there, my uncles and aunts are not there, my younger brothers are not there to shower affection on me, but all that I'm going to get from Swami. And I realize that Swami doesn't speak physically to every student. And I'm really craving for Swami. There are many times I would stand in the terrace, which I realize has now become a dining hall too. The B-floor terrace, all alone find a corner and cry. Because Swami would not talk to me. till some brothers told me that it is very selfish to expect that Swami physically should talk to you because Swami has got so many people to take care of. That's when the bhajan Antaranga Sai became very special for me. Because in my mind, I would think that while the physical Swami is public property, the Swami inside is only mine. And every person has their own custom-made version of Swami inside them. And with that Swami inside, you can be very possessive. And whenever I would sing, Rama Krishna Shiva Shakti Prema Rupa Sai Yugavatar Baba Sri Sathya Sai. And when I would sing the next line, I know I'm not supposed to crave for Swami physically, but with every inch of my mind, I would try and stretch out to try and reach his robe. And the next line I would sing, Yugavatar Baba. That was my vocalization of me stretching to reach the hem of his robe, to catch the corner of his eye. But I learnt over a time that it's very selfish to expect Swami's physical attention. I got over it after some time. But one day the craving came. It was Vijayadashmi day. Feels like coming back home because sir was there at that time also. So it's like I've come back to that group of, along with my brothers who were there with me when this happened. Vijayadashmi, Swami was seated here. Of course, that day we had a program. P. Sushilama, along with a few others, there was a program which was performed on this very dais. Bhagawan was sitting with us there. This place is special, dear brothers and sisters. Each time you walk, remember, God has walked here. And somewhere there possibly, the Swami was sitting in our midst, in the chair. And Vijayadashmi and I come from a family where I was taught to see Swami as Rama and Rama as Swami. And it was Vijayadashmi, Rama sitting in our midst. I trying to resist the temptation of wanting Swami's physical attention, but that day I just couldn't resist. I was thinking that, Swami, you've never touched me on my head. I've seen this so many times. But that day the craving comes and it's almost impossible. In my heart, the craving comes up, I shut it down. The craving comes up, I shut it down. It's not even a prayer, it's a craving, and I'm telling myself that I should not have this craving, that Swami should touch my head. The program gets over, Bhagawan walks from there towards the dais to bless all the artists. And like he would often do, he cuts a random path. And like when Krishna walked through the Yamuna, when he was carried through the Yamuna parted, and the parting happened where he wanted. So a path was created where he walked. And as he walked forward in the path, I realized that the path he had chosen, I was on the edge of the path. He was not walking on the carpet which was laid out for him. He had cut a path and I was right in the edge. I was sitting in the corner, brothers, like you're sitting here. Swami walks and I, with bated breath, I'm waiting for Swami to come near me. Swami is not looking at me. As Swami nears me, it was very deliberate. I could see it. Swami started putting his hand on the hands of boys, as though to balance and walk, as you would have seen in many videos. And as he passes me, my hand is nowhere. He is doing that. As we passed, he did not put his hand on my hand, but exactly as he passed, he put his hand on my head and then walked away. It was a beautiful moment because he did not look at me, I did not look at him. The heart spoke. He just touched and he passed on. Sarvatat Pani Padam. The touch of that hand you feel even today, the touch of the one in the play of the many, dear brothers and sisters, it may not come physically, but it may come in many other forms like you will. Possibly we will ruminate as we speak about a few other experiences. Pardon me, dear brothers and sisters, I know I didn't plan to get emotional, but then I'm at home. Back again, where we sat with our Swami, still sit with our Swami. But where we physically saw him, where this poor eye, this Charma Chakshu with all its limitations could see Swami. And I'm with my brothers and sisters, and this is safe space for me. And that's possibly why, I'm allowing not just the words, but the tears also to come out. Talking about that particular experience of Sarvatat Panipadam, I must also, this prayer, you pray once to Swami for the touch in the head. I asked for once and he gives twice. The second time it happened was, again, inside Sri Brindavan. I'm saying all this because the next time you walk there, remember, brothers, this is not my experience. It is about him. It's the touch of the one and the play of the many. Remember, you listen to this experience, you will get a feeling that it happened to you. At least that's what happens to me when I listen to experiences of devotees. Next time maybe you walk into Sri Brindavan, you will remember this. Once we were called Professor Ruchir Desai. Ruchir sir, as we fondly call him. As I speak, I looked at the place where he would sit, his stores, and I was part of the stores. One day we were told that we would not go to the college and we would go to Trei. Why? We did not know. But who will ask when you say we'll go to Trei? Nobody would ask for permissions. We are all ready. We had breakfast at 8. We had lunch at 10. Breakfast had to be had because other boys couldn't know. We had to have lunch because that is the only... And we went inside Trei. Bhagawan was physically inside Trei. We were asked to cut, cloth, safari suit, white dress. Swami was distributing this to Sevadals. So we were there almost the entire day. In the evening, Bhagawan came out just before darshan. The group of Sevadals were assembled outside in neat rows in the path. So, the path which is there, just you enter the gate, two sides, that narrow path, Sevadals were sitting on both sides. We had cut all the cloth and it was, so basically we had to run through, it was a much narrower bridge which was there from Swami's interview room in those days, from which we could run down. Now each one of us had to take that, that cloth. Very few boys were there. So we had to take it one by one to Swami, and Bhagawan was distributing it. Now there was a very few boys were there. So basically what happened is, and I got my chance. See, remember at that moment it doesn't even strike you that it's a great experience. So even before I could realize, I was in front of Swami carrying this cloth. So we had neatly arranged it, a shirt and a pant folded, one to neat sets. Now I'm holding it this way, which means Bhagawan will have to help himself and give it. I mean, I'll not be able to pick it up and give it to Swami. My hands are occupied. And I am 5'11". Bhagawan, by his own admission, is 5 feet 3 inches without hair, like you would say. So I had to bend down and adjust. I still remember my nose was touching Swami's robe. It was very close. I distinctly remember this, brothers. What Swami did is, he took the first set. The second set, instead of picking up the second set, it was very deliberate. He looked at me and there was a mischievous twinkle in his eye. Instead of pulling the second set, he pulled the third or the fourth set. Now, I can't help it because he is actually pulling something below and I'm trying to tell him, Swami, this is going to topple, but he does that. And the entire set topples onto Swami's lotus feet. And then Swami looks at me, there's a twinkle and a mischievous smile on his face, and then he gives a knock on my head, said, Dunnapotu. And the blessing get answered again, saying, Swami, you must touch me on my head. Sarvatat Panipadam. And then you may think, brothers, do all these things happen only in Swami's, Bhagavan's physical presence? No. Let me also talk about one more anecdote from Brindavan. This is after I had finished studies. Bhagavan was physically there. We had come back to have darshan. In fact, we did not get accommodation inside the ashram. Thus, we had to stay in one of those houses. When Bhagavan was there, a lot of these houses would actually a lot of these people staying there would give their houses on rent temporarily. It is a homestay kind of a facility. So we were on the first, somewhere in Kadugudi, one of those streets behind. We were staying there. Early morning, we had to come here for Bhagavan's darshan. 4:30 in the morning, I wake up, I come down, I open the gate. Now, one thing I must tell you is, in my family, all people, even before you are told that this is your name, they teach you, thou shalt fear dogs. They teach you first that you should fear dogs. That's how we are taught. I used to be petrified of dogs. Really petrified of dogs. Now there's a dog at home. That's a separate story. I'll tell you later. That's also Swami's hand. But I used to be petrified of dogs in those days. I just step out and suddenly I find that there are about 5 or 6, and it's dark, 5 or 6 street dogs, completely ferocious. They ambushed me from all sides, snarling and ready to jump on me. And the instant reaction was I started running. Very unwise thing to do if you're dealing with a pack of dogs. I started running in the streets of Kadugudi, nobody to help me. I just started running, the dogs following me, and brothers, at some point of time, I could feel their breath on me. You get what I'm saying? They were close to biting me. But dear brothers and sisters, at that point of time, something unbelievable happened. and this is, even as I say this, it's goosebumps. At that moment, I suddenly felt somebody hold me and turn me. I actually turned around, I looked at those dogs, and looking straight in their eyes, I said, shh. I'm just imagining what the dogs would have felt. Here was a guy who was running away. Suddenly, this guy turns around and does shh to the dogs. And I still remember there was stunned silence, like some big hero in a megastar movie. I walk away in slow motion. But then it sunk in after a few minutes. My God, what did I do? But I still remember that feeling on my shoulder was so distinct. It was not visceral, it was physical. It was like somebody held me, and Swami was not physically there. Which other hand other than that hand, Sarvatat Panipadam, which is there, could have actually done that? Held me, turned me. And one thing I realized that day is that was possibly the first message of Swami where I picked up saying that when you face challenges in life, don't run away from it, face it, because my hands are there on your shoulder. You know, he literally turned me and made me face that one biggest fear of my life, Sarvatat Panipadam. In fact, when you say Sarvatat Panipadam, one thing I must definitely talk about is, Panipadam, remember we think of this form only, but remember, Bhagawan says, Sarvaroopadharam Shantam Sarvanamadaram Shivam. Doesn't he say that? We've heard this so many times. I used to always think Sarvaroopadharam Shantam Sarvanamadaram Shivam. Sarvaroopadharam Shantam means Swami, you are Rama, Swami, you are Krishna, Swami, you are Ma Saraswati, Swami, you are Ganesha, Swami, you are Shiva, Swami, you are Jesus, Swami, you are Buddha. Sarvanamadaram Shivam, Swami, you are all these divine names. But then I was thinking, Swami, wait, you never said Sarva Divya Rupadaram Shantam, you never said Sarva Divya Namadaram Shivam. Then it struck me that forms which I think are the non-divine quote-unquote forms, which the human forms, Swami didn't say those forms are not his. Only I assumed that it is the Rama form, the Krishna form, the one with the bow, the one with the flute, the one with the mace. But then, maybe Swami is saying, Sarva Rupadaram Shantam. All the forms you see in front of your eyes, even as we sit here now in this hall in Bhagawan's presence, every name that we hear, Sarva Namadaram is also his name. And that came to me as an experience once. And that is where, when you say Sarvatat Panipadam, not just this Panipadam as we understood it. In fact, once I was sitting in the airport in Chennai, for some reason extremely upset. In fact, I had made a mess of my booking. I had booked a flight, instead of actually booking a flight for an evening on a particular day, I had wrongly booked a flight of the evening of the previous or the next day. I had to cancel last minute and book. By then the evening flight was too expensive. I had to book an early morning flight. A lot of problems, a lot of explanations which I had to give in office and all that. It was a mess, and I was entirely in a state of mess. I was sitting in one tiny corner because it's some unearthly hour of 3:30 Brahma Muhurtam hour in the airport of all places, sitting all alone and trying to, make peace with all the blunder which I had done. I remember I was sitting there, and this is, by the way, after Swami's physical departure, Swami's Mahasamadhi. Sitting there, that day, in a sheer state of desperation, I say, Swami, I don't know what. You must show your presence here. I think when fear comes, Swami would say this many times, when fear comes, suddenly bhakti increases manifold. I don't know whether it happens with you. It happens with me. In fact, there were some boys who would say that sometimes AIDS is acquired intense devotion suddenly. So, sudden devotion, surge of devotion. And actually I'm scared. I'm upset. Calling upon Swami, but I still remember at that moment there was this 100% conviction saying, Swami, I know you will show me I've not said that too many times in my life. One of those rare moments where I said, I know, Swami, you will show me your presence here. And even as I'm saying these words, there is a deep conviction, 100% conviction, a very rare moment in my life where there was zero doubt that Swami would show his presence here. Even as I was completing the word, Swami, I know you will show your presence here. I'm sitting in a terminal, one isolated terminal in Chennai airport, all alone, eating noodles, I still remember. And suddenly, even as I complete these words and this mental prayer, I can see a figure a person who is walking in towards me, and from far you can't make out, but as a person comes close by, I suddenly think this person looks very familiar. And lo and behold, was a classmate who studied with me in Brindavan, and I was meeting him 20 years later, and he was walking towards. Now imagine you meet a Sai brother exactly. I only Sarva Rupadram Shantam, Sarvanamadram Shivam, Sarvatat Panipadam. It was that Panipadam which he sent that day. You know, as a reminder of his presence, he walks towards a classmate of mine called Brother Srivatsan, who just walks in. I have not seen him too many times after that. I saw him after 20 years. He just walked in, and I asked him, brother, why did you come here? He said, I don't know, I just felt like walking in this direction. There was no logical reason. His gate was not this, his gate was somewhere else. He had no logical explanation on why he walked in that direction. Dear brothers and sisters, what is the probability of he being there in the airport, me having this prayer, he walking randomly exactly when this prayer happens? And needless to say, my heart was at peace. Sarvatat Panipadam. I must talk about one more experience, talking about my flying experiences. One of those days, it was monsoon, and that was the time when I used to be very scared of turbulence. Really scared of turbulence. And unnecessarily, people like this who are scared of turbulence unnecessarily go and watch things like air crash investigation. That will only, add further fear. Like Swami says that worry is mentally created, fear. No, you would, unnecessary. Now, I was so petrified. It was monsoon, I was supposed to fly, the weather condition was not great, and I'm really, really scared. Over a period of time, with Swami's grace, I learned to manage that fear, but at that time I was very scared. I still remember, dear brothers and sisters, that day I was desperate, and my prayer to Swami was, again after Swami's Mahasamadhi. And I was praying to Swami, saying, Swami, I don't know what you will do, Swami, but today you must be there with me in the plane. That's a seemingly impossible request. Swami, you must be there with me in the plane when I fly today, because I'm scared. I need you on the plane today. But I still remember one of those rare moments again in my life where there was 100% conviction that this would work. Unfortunately, this comes only, it has never come. One or two, twice, it has come. That's it. But that moment, it happened as soon as I boarded the flight. If I remember right, it was an Air India flight. I was on the aisle seat. The plane takes off. The turbulence is at its best. And suddenly what happens is the cabin crew walks past serving food. Since I'm on the aisle seat, I can see the cabin crew closely, and I notice the person's badge, the person serving me food. Dear brothers and sisters, can you guess what the name of this person serving food to me was? I read the name plate, and in utter amazement, I noticed that the name of that person was S-W-A-M-I, Swami. Swami, you must be there with me in the aircraft. This person was Swami. Now, if you think this is it, it is not it. Because sometimes, we say coincidence is a miracle where Swami chooses to be anonymous. But there are certain cases where Swami leaves a stamp. Because he knows that my monkey mind will again doubt, saying this was probability, this was luck, this was chance. But he did something very, very beautiful that day so that I don't get this doubt at all. Now let me tell you something very amazing. This person, S-W-A-M-I, Swami, who served me the food, was not even a man, it was a woman. Who on earth, dear brothers and sisters, which parent in their sane mind would name a girl as Swami? What is the chance, what is the probability of a cabin crew naming Swami on that flight when I pray, Swami, you must be there? Sarvatat Panipadam. I used to think Swami chants this poem, I unfortunately don't remember, but he used to say, Akashamalonna, even we're in the sky or on earth, or we're in the village, or you're in the city, in the forest, Dikkuleri Variki. For one who has no refuge, Sai is there. I used to think, Swami, everything is logical, but why sky? But that day I realized when I was flying, I needed him in the sky. And in the sky, Sarvatat Panipadam, Sarvatokshi Shiromogam, Sarvatashruti Manloke, Sarvamavritya Tishtati. In fact, talking about this, I must also add this when I talk about Sarvatat Panipadam. I said that we are petrified of dogs. But by Bhagawan's will, in fact, I must tell you that we are so petrified of dogs that in 1950s, when by quote-unquote a sheer accident, when my grandfather, along with his brothers, had landed up in Prasanthanilayam because one of his business associates took them. They did not even know about Swami. They were just taken there. They stayed somewhere. They didn't know where they stayed. But they realized in the morning when they woke up and when they checked their surroundings, they realized that they were in the first floor of a cowshed. That was premium accommodation in Puttaparthi in those days. And they walked into Prasanthanilayam. Swami gave them an interview on their first visit. Swami called all the brothers. Swami spoke to them. Amongst the many things Swami spoke to them, and one of the things which my grandfather asked Swami, imagine, one of the questions that grandfather asked Swami is, Swami, I'm so scared of dogs, what do I do? It was so important for him, this issue. Swami told him, saying that, see, you're thinking of it as D-O-G, dog. You must think of it as G-O-D, God. So that's what Swami told him. So prophetically what happened is, many years later, into our ancestral home, my grandfather wouldn't have even imagined, actually a dog walked in because my daughter decided that we must adopt a stray dog, which was born on a construction site in Chennai. We call her Arya now. Arya is her name. So Arya walks into the house. Now, first day, we knew nothing about dogs. We were scared of dogs. Can you believe this? On the first day we got her, she was a pup which was 45 days old, but we were so scared of her that on the first day, I decided to sleep in the highest vantage point available at home, which was the dining table. I'm not exaggerating. I slept on the dining table, which I was scared of this pup which was 45 days old. It looked like she would not even come out of the cardboard box in which we brought her. We thought, oh, dog is this much only. But in 1 minute, she was out and running all over the house. We were literally scared. And we realized that it is really not easy to take care of a dog. So much so that everybody in the house unanimously had voted that we should give the dog back. We were almost about to do that, dear brothers and sisters, but you know what happened? Just as we were about to do that, suddenly on Facebook, there is a post which comes. Okay? What is this post? We find Swami in Shirdi Baba, standing in front of not Dwarka Mai, but next to Dwarka Mai, there is actually the Chavdi where you would go to sleep at night. In front of the Chavdi, Shirdi Baba standing, it's a sketch of Shirdi Baba standing in front of the Chavdi. He has a bowl or a roti or something, and he's feeding a dog. Amazingly, the dog looked like a replica of Arya, this pup. Same spots, including everywhere, the coloring on her forehead, everything is the same. But that was not what sealed it. Shirdi Baba with dogs, Dattatreya, all that you would imagine. But in this entire, the person who had drawn this artist, had actually, what he had sketched is, Shirdi Baba feeding a dog, and on the side was our Swami standing like this, his handkerchief, lovingly watching this from the side. That sealed it, saying, and now Arya, of course, still there with us, okay? A reminder that it's not dog who's there with us, but the G-O-D God, like Swami said, there with us. Sarvatat Panipadam. Sarvatat Panipadam, and let's now move on to Sarvatokshi Shiro Mukham. Sarvatokshi Shiro Mukham. Now, when you talk about his face and eyes are there everywhere, what comes to my mind is, once my younger brother, he had the opportunity to study in Swami's college. In fact, he did his schooling in Prasanthanilayam, 11th and 12th, and he did his BCom in Brindavan. So, he is somebody who's got a Hanuman kind of a temperament, which means the only form of God he can accept is Swami. Any other form, he would not be interested. I mean, I really admire him for his ekagrata. Only Swami and nothing else. And that he would, any other form, he would say, not interested. Literally, he would say that. Once what happened is, of course, after he got married, it was a few years that passed by, there was no progeny. And it is a belief in Kerala that you would generally go and offer worship to the Naga Devatas. Because it's believed that sometimes you don't have children, it could be a Naga dosha, the serpent gods. And it is a very well acclaimed, revered practice in Kerala. So there are these very orthodox Nambudiri Kerala Brahmin houses where they do this puja very, very with a lot of devotion and application. So there was puja which was offered. So my parents had prayed that, when the progeny comes, we would bring the baby here. Now what happened? The progeny came, my niece, and then to fulfill the prayers of my parents, now he had to come. And I was also there. Very reluctantly he came because he's saying, Swami has given the child. Okay, why should I come and bow down here? So I still remember very reluctantly came there. Now they are so orthodox, this temple, it's actually their house. Even before you enter the house, there's a pond outside. You're supposed to have bath there and only then enter. So we had our bath, we were waiting to enter. At that time, this guy is actually talking about his frustration. He says, Swami only gave the baby. Why should we, it is not anybody else, etc., etc. But just to pacify him, and I must tell you, I didn't say it with any great conviction, okay? Just to pacify him, I decided to get a bit philosophical and all that, and a bit of a gyan. And I told him, saying that, he said, brother, that is all right. But see, Swami says, no, Sarvadevata Atita Surupa. Then I said, see, Swami is the chancellor of Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Learning, like that. But he's also appointed people, so different departments have been entrusted to different deities. He only has come in all these forms, but he has given them. So naturally, in this world where we worship, in the world of dualism we live in, he will say, go and pray there. But like a mother, he would always send word saying, my child is coming, take care. He would put in a word. So it's like that only. So I was trying to say that even the serpent god is a representative of Bhagawan only. He is the master, he is the CEO. Okay? All these are his managers. That's the reasoning I was supposed to give with zero conviction. I was just saying this. Even as I was speaking these words, now look at this fantastic timing of Bhagawan. Even as I was speaking these words, my wife, who happens to be here in this gathering with all of us today, so she, for some reason, she decides to open her wallet. And she's going to hate me for saying this, but sometimes when she opened the wallet, the Atala, Sutala, Patala, everything comes up. She digs through the purse and brings up everything. She was looking for something, but instead of picking up what she really wanted to pick up, what came out was something she never realized was there in the wallet, in her purse. What came out was a photograph of Swami, which she didn't know was there in the purse. You know what that photograph of Swami is? It is Swami sitting inside Prashanti Mandir, not on the throne. Swami sitting on the Ananta, not lying on the serpent. You have seen that photo. There's an Ananta and Swami. Dear brothers and sisters, what's the chance that that photo must come? I was just saying that he is the lord of all the serpents, but then, they are all his managers. Sarvatat Panipadam, Sarvatokshi Shiromukam. In that place in Kerala where we were waiting, he showed us, it is his face that he revealed to us at that point of time. Dear brothers and sisters, please note, in all these experiences I'm talking about, Bhagavan is not physically present. Because I think sometimes, it's about we being alert to his presence in our life. What we think of the ordinary could be the most extraordinary. If only we have the ears. Pashyanna vijanati pashyati, mudho, like Bhagavan would tell us. I think it's very easy to miss because this Lord of ours is hiding in plain sight. You know what fish notices last in its environment? Dear brothers and sisters, you know what fish notices last in its environment? It is water, because it is there everywhere. Similarly, because our Bhagavan is Sarvatat Panipadam, Sarvatokshi Shiromukam, sometimes we overlook his presence even in this moment. And that's why I think it's important to be alert. Even for me, this is an eye-opener because it is only when I was sitting for my preparation for Samarpan that I detected his presence many times in my life. But for this great opportunity, I would not have detected it myself. Talking about one more example of Shiro Mukham. Mukham is mouth. And here I'm talking about Bhagavan's messages and how he talks to you, conveys his message even now. In fact, I had this practice of, you have this on this Prashanti Connect app. There is this wonderful feature called Ask Swami or Ask Sai, yeah, where you could pray to Swami and then you could ask, pray to Swami and ask for a message. So there was a particular point in time where I would regularly, religiously, before I retire for the night, in front of the altar at home, like we would do in the night prayer here when we would gather together as a family in our rooms, I would do the same thing, that wonderful practice. I would sit there in front of Swami in the altar and I would pray to Swami and I would then ask for a message. Now one day when I asked for the message which I got was very strange. I have that message saved on my mobile. You know what that message said? The message said, you did not talk to me today. You did not talk to me today was actually the message. And I was wondering, what are you saying? You did not talk to me. Because what would happen is before I'd sit down and pray to Swami, I would actually talk to him. I would actually talk to him and then I would press this, I would ask Swami for a message. But then, dear brothers and sisters, that day I remembered, suddenly I realized something. Normally my prayer would be, I would start by saying, Swami, please speak to me. I would start by saying, Swami, please speak to me. And then I would say, dear Swami, in my mind, okay, I would say, dear Swami, by your grace, may I have the wisdom to understand your words and the strength to follow it. So this is the format of the prayer. But dear brothers and sisters, only on that day, Only on that day, when I had sat in front of the altar, I had forgotten to say, "Dear Swami, please speak to me." I only said, "Swami, may I have the wisdom to understand your words and the strength to follow it." I forgot to say, in that moment before I pressed that button, I forgot to say, "Dear Swami, speak to me." And Swami responds by saying, "You did not talk to me today." What is the probability of that happening? Sarvatat panipadam, sarvatokshi shiromukam. Even now, I think that's definitely possible. Talking about sarvatokshi shiromukham, I must talk about this. One of the practices I had picked up is while walking on, morning or evening walk, I decided that instead of listening to music, I will listening to Bhagawan's discourses, on the discourse stream. So you would have the feeling, that you're walking with Swami. It is wonderful because you're seeing the city landscape, but in your ear, you're listening to Swami all throughout. It's like he's walking with you and talking, like your prana sakha. Along with you. Like Swami says, "No, don't go ahead of me, I may not follow you. Don't come behind me, I may not wait for you." He says, "Walk with me." And this gives you the experience of walking with Swami. Literally. So one day I was out on one of these walks. Swami had completed a discourse, and I'm still walking. And Swami slips into a bhajan. Which bhajan does Swami sings? Swami sings, "Ranga Vittala, Pandu Ranga Vittala, Ranga Vittala, Panduranga Vittala." Which is this bhajan? Jaya Panduranga Prabhu Vittala. So there Swami sings, "Jaya Panduranga Prabhu Vittala, Jagadodhara Hari Vittala." And then Swami sings, "Shri Ramani Hridayantaranga, Shri Ramani Hridayantaranga." Exactly, dear brothers and sisters, when Swami sings the line "Shri Ramani Hridayantaranga," I find myself in front of a small hospital. I'm walking, remember. In Chennai, I find myself in center of a hospital. And exactly when Swami sings "Shri Ramani Hridayantaranga," on the left side is a hospital, and the name of the hospital, hold your breath, is Sri Ranga Heart Center. Sri Ramani Hridayantaranga, Sri Ranga Heart Center. Tell me, dear brothers and sisters, what is the probability that I will land in front of Sri Ranga Heart Center when Bhagawan is singing Sri Ramani Hridayantaranga? Swami had literally geo-tagged that bhajan. Just imagine. Bhagawan knew exactly when he delivered the discourse that day where I would be many years ago when I walk. Just think about the grandeur of that master plan. How many things he has controlled. He has decided what to sing, when to sing, knowing fully well that bhajan would be heard by me. I don't know how many more would have heard. Shrutva Tava Adbhuta Charitram, Akhanda Kirtim, infinite glory. We hold very high standards for Swami. But you know what? Despite the high standards, he ends up amazing us. Very difficult. Just think about it. There's nothing which you don't expect from Swami, but he still amazes you. The Lord, Shrutva Tava Adbhuta Charitram, Akhanda Kirtim, Akhanda Kirtim, Akhanda Kirtim. The infinite glory of Bhagavan, it was just mind-blowing. The Sri Ranga Heart Center. Sarvatat Panipadam, Sarvatokshi Shiromukam, Sarvata Shrutiman Loke. Sarvata Shrutiman Loke. In fact, his ears, Shrutiman. His ears are there everywhere. I must come back to Brindavan now from Chennai. I joined the institute. We were in the hostel. Bhagawan was here. 1994 was a wonderful year for all of us because Sai Kulwant Hall construction, Bhagawan spent his entire time here. In fact, Guru Purnima was celebrated here. First time I saw Swami wearing a yellow robe. I still remember standing here. Yellow robe. It was a very glistening kind of a robe that he wore that day. It was very surreal to see Swami, in a yellow robe that day. Guru Purnima. The Prashant Reddy and brothers from Parthi had actually come to the hostel and stayed here. I remember that time. So Swami was here for most of the time. So a few of us, we had joined together. There were a couple of there was one classmate of mine who studied with me in school. He had also joined along with me. We did 11th and 12th together. But he did not want to join Swami school. His house is named Prashanti Nilayam, in fact, by the way, because his mother is a devotee. He is not somebody who was particularly fond of Swami at that time, or at least he believed so. In fact, what had happened is that he did not want to study in Swami's college. He had, when he was granted, because of pressure from his mother, he decided to, fill up the application form because his mother was pushing him. He purposely filled the application form in a very shabby manner so that it'll get rejected by the institute. The institute accepted his application. In fact, it literally cut out, scratched out. He made it very dirty. But all the scratching was ignored. And he was called for the interview. He did not prepare for the exam. You had an entrance exam in those days and an interview we had to pass for even the undergraduate courses. This was BCom. So he did not want to do any of that. So, he did not prepare. In fact, as luck would have it, he had an accident just before we were supposed to come to Parthi to write our exams. The entrance exams are in Parthi during, May, around that time. So the accident was so serious that he had a fracture. He was delighted. His mother took him to the doctor and said, this boy has broken his leg, sir, we were supposed to travel. The doctor looked at him and said, serious fracture. But no problem, we can travel. He said, what is this? Nothing is working. He comes. There are brothers, who is in demand during all our entrance exams. Ganesha in our East Gate. Ganesha Gate is in demand. Okay, he will be in demand shortly again now. He's always in demand, but he'll be even more in demand now with entrance exams happening and people come there seeking admission. People going around him, 108 pradakshina, the circumambulation around him for admission. My dear friend does the circumambulation around Ganesha saying, Ganesha, I should not get admission. Can you believe this? 108. Praying for no admission. However, what happens is, Ganesha, the one with huge ears, to whom we say Bhadram Karne Pi Shriyama Deva, decides to not listen to his prayers in command to the father and mother, who must have told him, don't listen to this fellow. Because what happened is, he went for the exam, multiple choice questions, he knew the answers, the questions he knew, he marked it wrong. The questions he didn't know, anyway, was no problem. He passed the test. In the interview, he spoke with all the arrogance that he could muster, so that he would be most unbecoming of a future Sai student, but they selected him. And with all this frustration, he walks into Brindavan and says, I must have my revenge. And there was this act of rebellion he wanted to undertake. He had got into a not so beneficial habit of smoking. He had picked it up in school. And I knew this. So what happened is that during the study hours, and a lot of us brothers, we used to study I think we still study in the, the dining hall, which was also the prayer hall, the only dining hall we had at that time. The altar was different. The beautiful altar we have now, a slightly different version of that when I used to study. So sitting right next to Swami on the altar, we are all discussing. Me, one more boy from Kerala, 3 of us studying together. This boy, that day, Bhagawan is still here, in an act of rebellion, he had gone out of the campus, smoked and come back. In fact, he told us, saying, you know what I did today? I went out and smoked. This is act of rebellion. Because I got selected. My mother sent me here, I want to rebel. I went out and smoked. So we told him saying, brother, don't do it, you'll get caught. Warden will catch you, teachers will catch you. He said, nobody, they'll not catch. Now, I don't know what happened at that point of time. I was telling him, and I'm not sure whether I had great conviction, but I was telling him saying, brother, nobody will know. Warden may not know, teacher may not know, Swami will know. So he said, how will Swami know? There are 300 boys in the hostel, close to. How will Swami know? He said, brother, don't do it. It's not good for you. And then, I still remember, he threw a challenge. He said, let Swami ask me to stop smoking, I will stop smoking. Let Swami ask me to stop smoking, and I will stop smoking, is what he says. That happens. Many days later, in the hostel in the B-floor terrace used to be there, we used to have lines. And tokens used to be taken for boys to come in. We did not know, but by divine design that day, me, this brother who had gone out and smoked, and the other brother who was part of the conversation were all in the same line at different points. We didn't realize. So it happened that we were all close to each other in Sai Ramesh Hall when we sat here. And as a consequence, we were all right in the front in Trey Brindavan when Swami called us for Trey session that day. Bhagawan came out. Bhagawan came to Trey. He spoke to all of us. And after the Trey session, it was Swami would, accept Aarti. In fact, the boys would get an opportunity to do Aarti. In fact, not even his chance for Aarti that day. This brother, none of us were in the scene. Now, what Bhagawan would generally do is to light the Aarti and then hand over the matchbox to the boy who, offers Aarti. It's like a wonderful memento for that person to keep. It's received the divine touch of Bhagawan. So people would keep it, treasure it. But that day, Bhagawan does something different from the standard operating procedure. What Bhagawan does is, he lights the arti. Very deliberately he turns towards my brother who had gone out and smoked. He throws the matchbox at him, and then when the matchbox is thrown at you, the first thing you do as an impulse is to catch hold of the matchbox. And then Swami looks at him and says, "Hey, I've given you matchbox, but don't smoke." Don't smoke. There were 3 hearts there which leapt out of our mouths. Everybody, including the warden, was laughing. Because only 3 of us knew what Bhagawan was exactly talking about. Just a few days before in the hostel, in front of what we thought was a photograph, he had challenged Bhagawan saying, "Let Swami tell me I will stop smoking." And Swami told him, "Sarvata Shrutiman Loke." In fact, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says that the Lord listens to everything. He listens to even the footfall of an ant. And if he listens to so I think, though we are all the footfalls. In fact, forget the footfall of an ant. I think even before an ant dreams about thinking something, I think this Lord of ours, this merciful Lord of ours, listens to everything that we have in my mind. I must slip out of the autobiographical mode for just 1 second and talk about something which I can't, just can't resist mentioning. It's not my personal experience, but the experience of somebody who I know very closely, and I've heard it directly from this brother who I studied with. He studied in Brindavan, he also studied in Prashantalayam. Now this brother had, this again after Swami's Mahasamadhi, he had lent money to one of his cousins, decent sum of money, a couple of 1.5 lakhs, 2 lakh rupees. It's been quite some time his cousin brother was not returning the money. So he asks the cousin, one day calls up his cousin and says, "Bhai, you should return the money, I need the money." And the other person says, "Bhaiya, how can you suddenly ask for the money like this? I mean, it's not a small amount." He said, "Right, it's not a small amount, but I also need the money. It's been quite some time. I've been giving you hints, but you've not been giving the money." So after a bit of a conversation, which was not necessarily pleasant, the conversation concludes, and the cousin says, "Okay, let me see." That night, this Sai student, this brother, my classmate, has a dream. An HD quality dream where Bhagawan comes to him. Now note this detail. Bhagawan appears in the dream not in Brindavan, not in Prashantinilayam, but in Sai Shruti, Swami's divine abode in Kodaikanal. So Sai Shruti in the hall, Bhagawan walks up to him. This brother is seated. Bhagawan walks up to him and says, "Hey, you have lent money to your cousin, right? Don't ask him for that money now. He is not in a great financial situation." Swami says, "Not a great financial situation, don't ask now." Now this cousin brother is not Swami's devotee, quote unquote. Okay? But Swami is saying this. So next day he remembers the instruction very clearly and obedience to Swami's directions. He calls up his cousin next day and says, "Bhai, so that money you wanted, he doesn't mention Swami's dream, of course. Okay? For tactical and also other reasons. Anyway, this person doesn't need to know Swami. So he says that, you don't worry, you give it to me, but you don't have to give it to me right now. Okay? But you give it to me sometime, but give it to me. You take more time." The moment he said, "Take more time," dear brothers and sisters, the other person, the voice on the other side, the cousin says, "Bhaiya, thank you so much. I'm so relieved. Actually, I'm in a very bad financial state. Now, the best is after this." So, don't lose me now. Listen to what I'm saying very carefully, dear brothers and sisters. After that, he goes on to say, "Bhaiya, by the way, I'm in Kodaikanal." Who? That cousin who borrowed the money is in Kodaikanal. He is not from Kodaikanal. He is from somewhere in the northeast or north. He is not from Kodaikanal, but he happened to be in Kodaikanal. When this brother spoke to him, he said, "I am in Kodaikanal currently. Yesterday I was walking, I had gone on a walk to that Kodaikanal lake. Kodai lake was there. When I walked I saw your Sai Baba Mandir. I don't know what happened. 1 minute, I stood there and I was praying. 1 minute I was stood there and praying." Remember, dear brothers and sisters, Bhagavan came and appeared in the dream of the Sai student, not in Prashantalayam, not in Brindavan, but at source in Sai Shruti. Sarvatat Padipadam, Sarvatokshi Shiromukam, Sarvata Shrutiman Loke. He listens to us even now. I think all that is required is for us to have the awareness that he is still listening to us, and I think we'll have a very, very different experience of life. Let me end. It's just past 6. I'll just take 5 more minutes, brother, if you're okay. 5 more minutes and I conclude with one last experience, because I have to complete Sarvatat Panipadam. Sarvamavritya tishtati. He surrounds everything. The Lord surrounds everything. In what form? Many ways to look at this, but then when I was looking at these lines in this context, while preparing for this Samarpan talk, I'm sharing what struck me. But to talk about that, I must narrate an experience. This time I'll talk about a dream which I had. This was when I was working in Kerala. I worked for HDFC Bank, and those days I used to work as a branch manager in HDFC Bank in Kerala, in a place called Kollam in Kerala, somewhere close to Trivandrum. So we were all alone. Parents were in Trichur, and me and my wife, we got married, so we were there. So we were all alone. I remember once I got, early in the morning, must have been around Brahma Muhurtam time, very, very clear dream. So in the dream, I find myself in the interview room in Prashanti Nilayam. I'm in the interview room in Prashanti Nilayam. Bhagawan is seated on his chair, and if you've had the blessing to go inside the interview room or even watch pictures of the interview room chair, you would have seen the interview room chair, which is unmistakable. So Bhagawan is seated in the chair, and then Bhagawan speaking to me, then he said, where do you work? Swami, I work in a bank. Okay. So Swami says, bank means what work you do? And very sweetly Swami is saying, you write accounts and all that, and Swami showing with his hands like they write accounts. I said, no, Swami, I'm a branch manager. Still remember that pride on Swami's face. When I said branch manager, his face was swelling with pride and said, oh, you're a branch manager. Oh, very good, very good. Immediately Swami switches and Swami says, you sing, right? I said, Swami, yes, I sing, Swami. And then what Swami does is, Swami says, okay, what will you sing? And Swami is asking me in the dream, what will you sing? And I don't know why, dear brothers and sisters, at that time, I tell Swami in the dream that I will sing a song, which is a group song which our brothers would sing in Bhagwan's physical presence. I'm sure we sing now also. Teri hai zameen, tera asmaan, tu bada mehban, tu bakshish kar, sabhi ka hai tu, sabhi tere, khuda mere tu bakshish kar. That's the song. Not one of my favorite songs, not a song I've sung frequently, but for a purpose he chose, which I think I understood later, I decided to sing that. And it was wonderful, because what happened is the moment I started singing, and I'm sitting, of course, squatting on the ground and sitting cross-legged, Bhagwan gets off the chair. Bhagwan also sits cross-legged. I've never seen Bhagwan sit cross-legged on the chair, on the ground floor. I've never seen it. I've seen it in photographs, but then I've never seen it, live. So Bhagwan is sitting there, and from nowhere in the interview room, Swami pulls in a harmonium. And Swami asks me what song I'm going to sing. I say, Swami, Teri hai zameen. And Swami keeps the shruti, gives me the key for the harmonium. And I still remember, dear brothers and sisters, in the dream, Swami playing the lead line. Na, 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 na. Swami gives me the lead. And I start singing. It is so clear. And I start singing this. Now, brothers, if you know this song, and our brothers would know this, Teri hai zameen, tera asman, tu bada mehban, tu bakshish kar. After that, this is the zero stanza. What's the first stanza? Teri marzi se malik, hum is duniya mein aaye hai. However, in that dream that day, for some strange reasons, I skipped the first stanza. And I directly sing the second stanza. I sing the zero stanza and directly sing the second stanza. What's the second stanza? Tu chahe to hame mare, tu chahe to hame rakhe, tere hi haath se sai, hamare bhag hai likhe. Exactly when those lines are being sung, dear brothers and sisters, Swami, who till then was only playing the harmonium, starts singing along with me, swaying from side to side in the dream, as though he was underlining those lines. Remember, he never sang the first stanza with me. He was only singing this stanza with me, as though to underline those stanzas. This dream got over. Bhagawan got up. Swami said, good, good, good. I still remember, I'm still sitting. Swami just stood up. He created vibhuti, and now he's a very serious look on his face. And then he says, open your mouth. And I open my mouth, and Bhagawan drops the vibhuti. And at the angle in which I'm sitting in the dream, I can see the vibhuti falling like a waterfall. You can visualize what I'm saying. I still remember, it was so clear that in the particles of vibhuti which dropped onto my tongue, there were some golden crystals. I don't know what he put into my mouth that day, but there was something which was, vibhuti mixed with some golden stuff. I don't know, but it was very clear. I could see it in my dream. It landed. Vibhuti can taste very different each time. When Bhagawan, once I remember I had fever, and Swami here, on my birthday I had fever, and somewhere here only, Bhagawan once gave me vibhuti most unexpectedly. I still remember it distinctly tasted like paracetamol. But this particular vibhuti tasted sweet. It was sweet. So sweet, and then the dream broke and I woke up. I realized it was very early in the morning, and I remember I called my wife and said, I saw Swami. And brothers and sisters, what is unbelievable is at that moment, the Jagra and the Swapna was, there was that lines blurred. It was unbelievable because the taste of the vibhuti was lingering on my tongue. There were no particles, I tried. There was no, but it was so real that the taste of vibhuti was still on my tongue. What he had dropped in the dream was there in the waking stage for some time. It tasted sweet. Now, after this, I went through the most troublesome part of my career. Unexpectedly, I went through great difficulty, horrible difficulty. So much so that for reasons no fault of ours, you as a banker, as a manager, you handle various things in professional capacities. There are times when you have to handle, or you don't even handle, but the bank handles people who don't repay loans. There is certain legal action taken. There are people who file false cases against the bank when their vehicles are repossessed. Somebody who had filed a false case against the bank for repossession of vehicle had filed a complaint against the manager HDFC Bank, which was me. And I was summoned by the DYSP of police, and he was threatening to put me behind bars. I have not broken a traffic signal in my life. Imagine. Walking into a police station, I felt it was terrible. But even when I went through those terrible moments, when I thought everything is gone, that song would come back to my mind. Tu chahe to hame mare. Oh Swami, if you wish to, you may hit me. Tu chahe to hame rakhe. If you wish to, Swami, you may protect me. But whether you're hitting me, Swami, or whether you're caressing me, Tere hi haath se sai, hamare bhag hai likhe. May I always remember, Swami, whether it's pain or pleasure, whether it's victory or failure, whether it's honor or dishonor, O Lord, may I remember that the script of life is written by you, and both of that is your prasadam. Which is what Bhagawan writes in the letter to his brother, 25th of May, 1947, to Sheshama Garu Raju, but then actually written to all of us his definition of devotion. I realized much later that Bhagavan was telling me the definition of devotion. Tu chahe to hame mare, tu chahe to hame rakhe, tere hi haath se sai hamare bhagle hai likhe. This part, Swami, pleasant or painful, is written by you, Swami, and hence I will accept both of it as prasadam, with samadrishti. I didn't realize that that was the lesson he was teaching us. And like Nataraja, the king of dancers, he says, I know the agony of teaching you each step in this dance of love. I used to wonder, Swami, how? I mean, are you trying to say that, Swami, you are horrible students? I'm Nataraja, the king of dancers. I know that, you're so bad students that I know the agony of teaching you. Later on, I realized maybe Swami was not trying to say that. What Swami is trying to say is, child, when you go through, to teach you this game of life, this dance of life, I will have to allow you to go through pain and pleasure. And when you go through pain, I weep with you. Main muskaya, tu muskai, main roya, tu roi. Each time I cry, I think Bhagavan writes in one letter, my heart bleeds and cries with you. That Lord who's Vaitali, thousand mothers, each time he allows us to go through the difficulty, how much he would have, he goes through that agony, but then he knows he has to teach us this dance of life. That agony he goes through, the selfless mother. And each time I would go through, that would happen. But miraculously, I would come out of this clean. And after that, I saw a pattern. Every time there has to be trouble which comes into my life, this song would appear out of nowhere. Once, when I thought all my troubles in life had ended, I had come to Brindavan for some work in the college. And that day, one of my brothers saw me after Suprabhatam here in the hostel and said, brother, you have come. I said, of course I've come. I've got work in the institute. No, you have come today. I said, what's so special about today? Workshop session. He said, no, there is a surprise for you. I said, what surprise? What happened is they were planning to teach songs to brothers, to students. There was one song where they wanted to teach. They had tried to teach various days, but for some divinely ordained reason, the teaching of that song had got postponed every single day and had got scheduled that day, and I had landed up that day, and that song was Teri hai zameen, tera asmaan. And it was lovely of those brothers, how loving our brothers are. That day when they gave me the opportunity to sing that song in the foyer, and they also, for my sake, they reversed the stanzas and said, brother, please sing, Tu chahe to hame mare first. So that's how loving our brothers are. That, the Sai who connects all of us, that Paraspara Prema which happens because of a common bond of Sai. But you know what happened? Trouble started all over again after that. Even a few days before, before that, I walk in for Prema Bandham that day in, Prashanthi Nilayam. I walk in for registration. There is a brother who's sitting there. As I put my feet in, he starts singing, Teri hai zameen, tera asmaan. And I'm thinking, my God. And can you believe this? He's singing it out of tune. Not even in Shruti. It was horrible for the ear and also causing tension in the mind. Saying, this song has come again. Predictably, trouble started again, the next round. In fact, after some time, me and my wife would get worried. My wife would say, oh my God, this song has come again. In fact, there was one of these devotees in Chennai was sharing this, and I'll relate to I'll tell you why I'm talking about this. When he was in Africa, he was contemplating joining the Sai organization, but he observed a pattern. It appeared that people had no problems in their life till they came into the Sai organization, but it appeared that once they came into the Sai organization, troubles which they never knew were there came. In fact, the trouble seemed to become manifold for many people. He did not understand this. In fact, he started getting scared. In fact, he went to one of the elders there and said, brother, don't get me wrong. I'm contemplating becoming a member of the Sai organization. But my fear is, it looks like all of you guys know your troubles increase after you join the Sai organization. So I'm also worried that if I come to Swami's fold, troubles will come into my life. And this brother, look at his wisdom. He smiles and says, Bhaiya, you've understood it wrongly. It is not that you have come into Swami's fold and because of that troubles have come into your life. It is because troubles are going to come into your life that Swami is coming into your life. It's the other way around. You have come into Swami's fold because, troubles are going to come because, the child needs to experience the mother's presence the most when it is unwell, when it has to pass through. It's like, when you in the flight, when you go through, it's like the pilot tells you that we are going to pass through turbulence. He is not threatening you. He's comforting you. He's telling you, don't worry, I've got this. Like that, this Lord is saying, don't worry, I've got this. It took me a few years to realize that is what actually Swami was trying to say. When Swami would say, test is my taste, I would say, it may be very, please pardon me for saying this. Initially, I used to think, Swami says, if you ask a buffalo what God is, it'll think of it as a big buffalo. So sometimes, when I read Swami's sayings, I interpret it like if I had said this is what I would have meant. That's the problem. But Swami is no selfishness, self-interest. Swami would say, Talanenchi Kaluvaraku, no selfishness, self-interest. So I should not interpret it like I say it, no? So, test is my taste. I used to think, Swami, how sadistic. How can you say test is my taste? It's like saying you enjoy. Then I realized recently when I read Swami's literature, I realized another version of it came. The one version of this quote is, test is my taste test is the taste of God. So maybe when Swami says test is my taste, he's referring to himself as God. Test is the taste of God test is my taste, which means it is when you go through a test or troubles that you enjoy or experience my taste more intensely. Like Kunti. Maybe that is what it means. So this started coming to my consciousness slowly. And this journey continues even now. And I slowly realized that, Swami, that is not what you're trying to say. Very mercifully, O Lord, you're trying to say, don't worry, up or down, I have got your back. In fact, even most recently, somebody randomly called me and asked me, brother, why don't you sing this song nowadays? And a few days later, I got a show cause notice. For the first time in my life and a career, for no fault of mine. It went away. The problem went away like mist, for no fault of mine. But it went away like mist. But then, mercifully, the Lord, every single time. Why am I narrating this? Sarvatat panipadam, sarvatokshi shiromukam, sarvatat shrutimaloke, sarvam avritya tishtati. The way I look at it today is, Swami, whatever I experience around me, Swami, pain or pleasure, gain or loss, honor or dishonor, Swami, everything which surrounds me as stimulus, Everything around me is experiences, Swami. It is always, always, Swami. It is your compassion, your love, which is coming in a different form. Because you have taught us, the idea is to have look at everything with samadrishti. In fact, I used to always think, we used to sing in front of Swami, O mere sai, मुश्किल है जीना तेरे बिना महबूब आलम ये दिल लगे ना ओ तेरे बिना तुझे सलाम सलाम ओ साई मेरे सोने लगे जिंदगी तेरे बिना. I used to think, Swami, suni lage zindagi tere bina. But now I realize the reality is not that. The reality is the ending of the same kavali when we say, तुम पास हो एहसास हुआ तुम पास हो एहसास हुआ. Oh Swami, I have experienced now that you are closer to us than everybody. तेरा प्यार का एहसास हुआ तेरा प्यार का एहसास हुआ सुना ये दिल आबाद हुआ सुना ये दिल आबाद हुआ सुना ये दिल आबाद हुआ. Swami, O Lord, who is present in us, around us, above us, below us, guiding and guarding us like the eyelids guard the eye. O Swami, Mother, Father, Guru, the only friend we ever have, we ever had, and will ever have. O Lord, all the words that have been spoken here, please give me the strength to offer it at your lotus feet. May our thoughts be immersed in your smarana always. Jai Sai Ram.
Sri Sai Ram. We must thank our brother today. He took us back to those wonderful experiences. The Swami patting him on his head. But today what struck me was, Sanskrit, Qawwali, music, science, commerce. I think there was a beautiful word today the tech-savvy guys or the children will understand. We geotag God, I mean, everything was covered so beautifully. There was nothing that we could feel we were not left a part of. We can only pray to Swami on this auspicious day of Akshaya Tritiya that we were blessed to hear these wonderful experiences. And I think all of us today should pray to God and Swami that He blesses us with much more of these wonderful instances and we face life with courage, with strength. We cannot sing well like this brother today, but in our hearts we carry those songs beautifully. I have a few announcements to make. Firstly, we would like to thank the Samarpan team, the Brindavan Samiti for allowing us to have this wonderful session every month. As we complete 179th, my prayer to Bhagawan is we continue to offer more Samarpans well like this. Now I would request Ravi Kumar sir and our district coordinator to first bless our guest today I think we have been the students, so we would request that a shawl be adorned to our guest. I request the speaker to come to the stage. I think the devotees can take prasadam after the Mahamangalarti. I would request the speaker today to perform the Mahamangalarti today and end this wonderful Akshaya Tritiya day. Jai Sai Ram.
Om Jai Jagadish Hare Swami Sathya Sai Hare Bhakta Jana Samrakshaka Bhakta Jana Samrakshaka Pati Maheshwara Om Jai Jagadish Hare Sashi Vadana Shritara Sarva Pranapade Swami Sarva Pranapade Ashrita Kalpaladika Ashrita Kalpaladika Apad Bhagava Om Jai Jagadish Hare Mata Pita Guru Devamu Mariyantayunive Swami Mariyantayunive Nada Brahma Jagannatha Nada Brahma Jagannatha Nagetra Shayana Om Jai Jagadish Hare Omkara Rupa Jasvi Sai Mahadeva Sathya Sai Mahadeva Mangala Arati Anduko Mangala Arati Anduko Mangala Giridhari Om Jai Jagadish Hare Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana 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 Om Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana Narayana Om Jai Sadguru Deva Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana 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 Om Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana Narayana Om Jai Sadguru Deva Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana 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 Om Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana Narayana Om Satya Narayana Narayana Om Jai Sadguru Deva Om Shanti 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 Samasta Lokaah Sukhino Bhavantu Samasta Lokaah Sukhino Bhavantu Samasta Lokaah Sukhino Bhavantu Om शांति शांति शांति। जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा